But I want to show you what that advice gets wrong. Because here's the truth, a rushed appointment rarely has time for. Popcorn is the only snack food that's 100% whole grain and completely unprocessed. A single serving can cover most of the whole grains the average person eats in an entire day. Its outer hull, the very part that annoys you by catching in your teeth, carries some of the richest antioxidants of any grain. And large studies following tens of thousands of people tie whole grains like this to a real, measurable drop in type 2 diabetes risk. So, no, plain popcorn isn't the villain, but that one word, plain is doing an enormous amount of work. Because the gap between a bag that protects your numbers and a bag that quietly raises them can be 100-fold, and it's printed right there on the label where almost no one looks. Today I'll give you the 5 best popcorns for blood sugar, counted down to my number 1, and I'll flag the ones I gently lift out of your cart. Number 1 may surprise you. Before we go further, tell me one thing. When you reach for popcorn, is it usually a bag from the store? Or something you make yourself at home? Just a word or two below. And if you'd like reliable medical guidance on managing blood sugar after 60, subscribe so the next one finds you. Let's start with why popcorn gets such a bad reputation in the first place. Because once you understand this, you'll be able to look at any bag and know exactly what you're dealing with. Here's what most people never hear. Popcorn is one of the very few snacks that is 100% whole grain and completely unprocessed. The kernel goes from the plant to your bowl with almost nothing done to it. A single 3-cup serving delivers more than 70% of the whole grains you're supposed to get in a day. And that matters because the average person eats only about half a serving of whole grains daily. So this humble snack could quietly do more for you than almost anything else in your pantry. Now, the reason it's gentle on your blood sugar comes down to fiber. 3 cups of air-popped popcorn carry around 3.5 grams of it, and fiber acts like a brake. It slows how fast the carbohydrate turns into sugar in your bloodstream, so your numbers rise gradually instead of spiking. Yes, popcorn's glycemic index sits around 55, which is low to moderate. But here's where I want you to think a step deeper, the way I do. What really matters isn't just the glycemic index, it's the glycemic load, which simply means the real-world jump in your blood sugar once you account for how much you actually eat. And because popcorn is mostly air, all that volume with very few calories, its glycemic load stays low. You feel full long before you've eaten enough to cause trouble. Then there's the part that surprises even my colleagues. That papery hull, the piece that gets stuck in your teeth and drives you a little crazy, is a genuine goldmine we've been throwing away. Popcorn carries polyphenols, powerful antioxidants, up to around 300 milligrams per serving. That figure comes from research by Dr. Joe Vinson at the University of Scranton, presented to the American Chemical Society. And nearly 98% of those phenolic compounds live right there in the hull, and they hold up even after the kernel pops. The very thing you find annoying is doing quiet work for you. At the root of it is a compound called ferulic acid. In plain terms, it helps lower the oxidative stress that wears your body down, supports how your cells respond to insulin, improves your cholesterol picture, and even nudges blood pressure in the right direction. That's a big part of why whole grains keep showing up, study after study, tied to lower metabolic risk. And let me put one old fear to rest, because I hear it constantly from people your age. For years, folks were told to avoid popcorn because those little holes might trigger diverticulitis. That advice has been overturned. A study by Dr. Lisa Straight, published in JAMA in 2008, followed more than 47,000 men for 18 years. And the ones who ate the most popcorn actually had a lower risk, about 28% lower. So you can let that worry go. So here's what all of this gives you. 3 simple measures to judge any bag of popcorn you pick up. First, how it's popped and what oil is used. Second, the sodium. And third, added sugar and the portion size. Keep those 3 in mind because we're about to hold every option up against them, starting with the bags quietly working against you. And some of them are working against you while wearing the word healthy right on the front of the package. That's what makes them so easy to miss. Start with kettle corn and caramel corn because these are the biggest blood sugar traps of all. That touch of sweetness you enjoy comes at a steep price. Adding sugar shoves the glycemic index all the way up to around 85 or 89. We've left the gentle zone entirely. And here's the number I want to stay with you. A single cup of caramel corn can carry about 26 grams of sugar. Plain popcorn has essentially none. So the same food you thought you were being good with is delivering a sugar hit closer to dessert than to a whole grain. Then there's movie theater popcorn, which is a different kind of problem. A calorie and sodium bomb dressed up as a treat. One large tub can reach around 1,090 calories and roughly 2,650 milligrams of sodium, according to the American Heart Association. Even a small bag can hold about 25 grams of saturated fat and nearly 670 milligrams of sodium. For a body already managing blood sugar and blood pressure, that's a lot to hand it in one sitting. The microwave butter bags bring their own trouble, and it's in the additives. Many use hydrogenated oils, trans fats that stir up inflammation. That buttery aroma has often come from a chemical called diacetyl, and the bags themselves have been lined with PFAS, the so-called forever chemicals. This one worries me a little more, because if you're living with diabetes, your heart is already under extra strain. You don't need oils working against it. And the cheese and white cheddar coatings, they simply pile on more sodium, more of the wrong fats, and more additives, wrapped around what could have been a perfectly good snack. Let me tell you about Ruth, who was 67, because her story is one I've seen play out again and again. Ruth had done something she was proud of. She'd given up her nightly potato chips and switched to popcorn, the healthy choice, she thought. Every evening in front of the television, she'd work her way through most of a bag of kettle corn. It felt like a win, but over a few months, her fasting blood sugar crept upward. She'd put on about 7 pounds, and she was convinced her metformin had simply stopped working. She said to her doctor, almost in frustration, "I've done everything right. Why is it getting worse?" But the pills weren't failing her. It was the sugar hiding in that kettle corn, night after night, quietly undoing all her good intentions. That's the thing about these bags. It was never the popcorn betraying Ruth. It was the version she chose without knowing what was on the label. So let's turn that around now and start counting down the ones I'd actually be glad to see in your cart. We'll begin with the 2 best options for those days when you simply don't have time to fuss. The grab-and-go bags you can pull off a shelf and trust. Coming in at number 5 is Angie's Boom Chicka Pop, the sea salt or lightly salted version. What I like here is straightforward. It's non-GMO, the sodium is kept modest, and it comes in pre-portioned single bags, which quietly solves one of the hardest problems of all, knowing when to stop. When the bag ends, your portion ends. It's widely available too, so you won't have to hunt for it. Now hold it up against our 3 measures. A reasonable oil, low sodium, no added sugar. It passes all 3. That's exactly the kind of quick check I want you doing on your own. At number 4 is Lesser Evil Himalayan Pink Salt. This one is organic. It's popped in steam rather than swimming in oil, and it's finished with coconut oil and pink salt. Run your eyes down the ingredient list and you'll find it clean and short. No added sugar hiding in there. Again, walk it through the same 3 questions. Healthy oil, check. Low sodium, check. No added sugar, check. You're not trusting the brand name. You're trusting what you verified yourself. And that habit, checking rather than trusting, is the whole point. Because labels are designed to slip past you. Aim for something under about 200 milligrams of sodium per serving. But watch that word, serving, very closely. Because this is where the packaging plays tricks. Sometimes the calories are listed for the whole bag, sometimes for a cup of popped corn, and sometimes for tablespoons of unpopped kernels. 3 completely different numbers for the same product. If you don't notice which one you're reading, a bag can look far better or far worse than it truly is. So find the serving size first, every single time, before you trust a single figure on that label. That skill of reading past the marketing carries us to number 3, choose. The bag I hand people as the standard to measure every other one against. Number 3 is Skinny Pop Original, and I call it the clean benchmark for one simple reason. The shorter the ingredient list, the better, and this one has just 3. Popcorn, sunflower oil, and salt. That's it. Around 39 calories a cup. Nothing you can't pronounce. Nothing you didn't expect. When you're trying to decide whether some other bag is worth buying, hold it up against this. If a label needs a paragraph to explain itself, while Skinny Pop needs one line, you've learned something. And a fair warning, the other flavors, the cheddar and the rest, start adding ingredients back in. So even within one brand, turn the bag over. The name on the front doesn't tell you what's inside. But I want to be honest with you about that word skinny, because it does some quiet misleading of its own. Skinny does not mean carb-free. A single personal bag still carries around 15 grams of carbohydrate, perfectly reasonable for one sitting. The trouble starts when a family-sized bag ends up in your lap, and you look down 20 minutes later to find it mostly gone. At that point, even the cleanest popcorn in the store will push your blood sugar up. The food didn't change, the amount did. And that brings me to something I'm genuinely curious about, so let me ask you directly. When you sit down with popcorn, how much do you actually finish in one go? Is it one small bag, or does the big one somehow empty itself? Be honest and put it in the comments. I ask because it's the single biggest thing standing between people and steady numbers, and naming your habit out loud is the first step to changing it. Because here's what most people get backwards. They spend all their energy choosing the right bag and none of it choosing the right amount. Get both right, and even a store-bought snack works in your favor. So let's climb one more rung to number 2, where you start taking real control of what goes into the bowl. Number 2 is stovetop popcorn made with the right oil. And I mean olive oil or avocado oil specifically. This is the moment you stop handing the decision to a factory and start making it yourself. These are monounsaturated fats, the kind that's genuinely good for your heart, and popping in a fat like this does something useful. It helps you feel fuller and stay satisfied longer. And when you're more satisfied, you reach for less, which is exactly what keeps your blood sugar steady through the evening. Now let me be straight with you about the trade-off, because I won't pretend there isn't one. Stovetop popcorn does carry more calories than air-popped. You are adding oil, and oil counts. But what you get in return is real, lasting fullness and a healthy fat your body can actually use, instead of the cheap oils hiding in those microwave bags. For many people, that exchange is more than worth it. A little more calorie for a lot more staying power and none of the additives. A word on which oils to reach for and which to leave alone. Skip the hydrogenated oils entirely. Those are the trans fats we already talked about, and they have no place in your kitchen. And here's one that surprises people. Oils very high in polyunsaturated fats like grapeseed oil aren't ideal for popping either. They break down under high heat in ways you don't want. Olive and avocado are steadier, sturdier choices for the stovetop, and they bring those heart-friendly fats along with them. Feel that? That's control coming back into your hands. You're choosing the oil, the salt, the amount, every part of it. And once you've felt what that's like, you're ready for the one that surprises almost everyone. Because the very best popcorn on this list isn't the fanciest bag on the shelf or the most expensive organic label. It's something far humbler than that. Let me show you number 1. Number 1 is plain, air-popped popcorn made at home from loose kernels. That's it. After everything, all the brands, all the labels, all the clever packaging, the winner is the quietest, cheapest option in the entire store. A bag of loose kernels costs almost nothing, lasts for months, and gives you something none of the others can. Total control. When you don't add salt, a cup comes in at around 1 milligram of sodium. Compare that to the 2,000 plus in a movie tub, and you begin to see what plain has been doing for you all along. You decide the oil. You decide the salt. You decide the amount. Nothing is decided for you by a company trying to make the bag taste addictive. But being the best only helps you if you use it well, so let me give you exactly how to do that. Start with the portion, because this is where it all lives or dies. 3 cups of air-popped popcorn comes to about 15 to 18 grams of carbohydrate and roughly 80 calories. Think of that as one starch choice in your meal, the same way you'd count a slice of bread or a small serving of rice. Measure it out once or twice, and your eye will learn what 3 cups looks like, so you're never guessing. Then, pair it to flatten the curve. On its own, popcorn is a carbohydrate, and carbohydrate alone raises blood sugar faster. But add a little protein or a healthy fat alongside it, a small handful of almonds, a cheese stick, a hard-boiled egg, and you slow that rise considerably. This matters most in the evening, when so many of us do our snacking and when the body handles sugar less efficiently. That simple pairing can be the difference between a calm overnight number and a stubborn one. Now, flavor, because plain doesn't have to mean bland, and you don't need butter or sugar to fix that. Try a dusting of cinnamon, which brings warmth and a touch of natural sweetness. Or nutritional yeast, which gives you a savory, almost cheesy note with none of the sodium load. Herbs work beautifully. And if you want a little richness, a light spritz of olive oil is all it takes. You have far more room to enjoy this than anyone ever told you. And one thing I want to speak to directly, because it's a real concern at our age. If those hulls catch in your teeth, or your gums aren't what they used to be, or chewing has simply become more of a chore, you have options. Look for a hulless variety, like Black Jewel, or the smaller, tenderer mini kernels, like pipcorn. Either way, chew thoroughly and drink enough water alongside it. Comfort matters, and there's no reason to give up something you enjoy over a fixable problem. Let me tell you about George, who was 70, because he found his way to exactly this. George had a nightly ritual he loved, a bag of microwave butter popcorn in front of the television every single evening. He wasn't willing to give up the ritual, and I never asked him to. What changed was only the bag. He started popping his own kernels with a little air popper, dusting them with cinnamon, setting a small handful of almonds beside the bowl, and holding himself to 3 cups. That was the whole adjustment. Within a few weeks, his morning numbers had softened, not dramatically, but steadily, in the right direction. And here's what mattered just as much to George. He still had his evening in front of the television, bowl in hand, feeling like himself. He didn't lose the thing he loved, he just chose it differently. And that, in the end, is the whole story. It was never the kernel that was the problem, it was the choice around it. The same popcorn that quietly raised Ruth's numbers is the one that quietly steadied George's. Nothing about the corn changed between them, only what they did with it. So the next time someone tells you popcorn is off the table for good, you'll know better. It was never the food that needed to go, it was the version you were reaching for without knowing what was inside. So let's bring it all together, because I want you to walk away with this settled in your mind. Popcorn was never your enemy. The choice was. Plain popcorn, kept to the right portion, is a gentle whole grain that fits a body over 60 beautifully. It lifts your blood sugar slowly, it fills you up on almost nothing, and it hands you real antioxidants in the bargain. You don't have to give up something you love, you just have to read the label and mind the amount. That's the whole secret, and now it's yours. Here's how I'd put it into practice, starting tonight. First, hold your portion to about 3 cups of air popped and judge every bag by those 3 measures we used all the way down the list. Under about 200 milligrams of sodium, as little saturated fat as possible, and no added sugar. Second, favor air popped or stovetop with olive or avocado oil and steer clear of the microwave butter bags, the kettle and caramel corn, and the movie theater tub. Third, pair your popcorn with a little protein, a few nuts, a cheese stick, a hard-boiled egg, especially in the evening to keep your numbers steady overnight. And fourth, if your teeth or gums give you trouble, reach for a hulless or mini variety, chew well, and drink water with it. And a good question to bring to your doctor or dietitian. How should popcorn fit into the total carbohydrate count for your meals? That's a conversation worth having together. Now I'm curious. Of the 5 we ranked, which one will you try first? Or what surprised you most? Was it that humble number 1? Or those 26 grams of sugar